Hello, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow. I want to touch and to reflect upon a previous video that I have done, which was in response to a review or slash video that ReviewTechUSA had done. And I want to clarify a few things and plus bring you up to speed of some things that have happened since then. You probably heard about things by now concerning Gran Turismo 7. Now, before I go into what has happened recently, the recent developments, you probably already know what's going on by now. Let's get into my feelings concerning the response I got from the response video I did to ReviewTechUSA. Now, first things first, I appreciate the people who, even though you may have disagreed with me, you were respectful of me. I do appreciate that. There are a few people who did get vitriolic. I did have to block one person because it seemed as though they were just trying to say things that were nonsense. And I don't like to do that. I don't want to do that. But unfortunately, that's something that hadn't been done. So there was that. The one thing I wish I'd done a little bit different with that particular video was to clarify just the position I had, which was the one true thing I was wanting to respond to and what I wanted to correct was the factual errors that Rich had made about the game. Now, everything else is subjective. And of course, you are free to like or dislike anything about any kind of game. You're free to like or dislike a game, and for whatever reason. Hey, if the graphics weren't to your preference, or sound, or control quality, or whatever, that is your prerogative, but that's also subjective. That is also something that you yourself had based upon what your perspective is, what your preference is, if something didn't click with you, if there was a mechanic that you felt uncomfortable with, or there was a particular subject matter you felt uncomfortable with, that is your prerogative. That doesn't mean you are or not a fanboy. It just means you didn't like the game for whatever reason. You didn't like a particular section or element of the game for whatever reason. But you can't prove that one way or the other because that's not particularly a fact. It is just an opinion that you have based upon your preferences, whatever. What my problem was with Rich was that he got things factually wrong. Now, it may be because I may have misheard something, or maybe I didn't interpret it right, or something like that. But the two things that I was most troubled about was the notion that it was his editor, to be fair, that said that you had to do the license test and get your B license before you were able to do any kind of progression whatsoever. That was the first progression you had to do, which is untrue. At some point, you do have to do the B test in order to progress in the game, but that's not the first thing you have to do. You can go and start on the first menu, which is the collection of cars. I forget what cars were, and you have to compete a few races, and then you get to those World Cups, World Circuits, and those are when you start having to get those licenses. But not until then, which is what, if you watch the Rich ReviewTechUSA video, you would get that impression that that's what you had to do. Other thing that was troublesome for me, and this is something that we disproved in the video because I was driving one when I was recording the video, was that there was no cars in the game that was the model year post 2017. And that was untrue because you saw that. You saw that I was driving a 2018 car when I was doing the video. Now, are there many cars dated after 2017 in the game? That is up for debate. Now, is it quantity over quality? Maybe. Again, I've not gotten that far in the game. I'm a slow player, believe me. I like to take my time with games, so sue me. However, the fact of the matter is that there are cars in the game that have a model year of post 2017. And I feel as though with those particular aspects of that review, that what was going on is that he was misleading the consumer, either maliciously or by accident or something along those lines. And I don't think he was meaning to mislead the consumer because sometimes he has good takes, sometimes he does not, and sometimes we do have to correct him on some things. And sometimes it does sound like he is being a shill from Microsoft, and I get why. And yeah, I do call him out sometimes on these things. It's not the first time I've called Rich out. I've called Rich on a few things. The Aaron Greenberg comment that Aaron Greenberg made, and Rich said that Aaron was within his right to say it. And of course, his beef with the quartering, and I don't understand why they can't just talk that out and that it had to end with them blocking each other. So yeah, I have called him out before, and maybe that had something to do with why I called him out here, maybe because I've seen him have some really odd takes in the past, and maybe that was a byproduct of that. However, I didn't exactly want to go after him per se, by quote unquote. I just wanted to correct him on a few things and say that I didn't have the same experience that he did with the game. Now, you may not have the same experience that either of us have had. You can say, hey, maybe I don't like this element that either JD or Rich liked, but I like something that neither of them liked, or that one of them liked, or that both of them liked. Maybe I didn't like something that they did. Again, that is your prerogative, that is your preference, and you're free to express that however you want, as long as it's constructive, as long as it's coming from some place that is out of respect. That's what I ask out of anybody who responds to any of my videos. I would hope that you would like that to be done for you. But maybe I could have cleared that up a little bit. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be called a fanboy no matter what I try to say. Some people are going to do that no matter what. There are going to be people who say, oh my god, you are criticizing Rich, you must be a Sony fanboy. And keep in mind is that he is not above criticism, regardless of where it comes from. I had a comment like that, saying that, oh, it was out of bounds for you to criticize a YouTuber that is bigger than you are because you were riding the coattails by doing so. And that's not the case, at least for me. I try my best in order to be as genuine as possible. Sometimes I have to correct myself too. I'm not above that either, and no, I don't think I'm above criticism at all. But no matter if you are a smaller YouTuber or a bigger YouTuber, you are allowed to criticize and to correct and to, for lack of a better phrase, calling out the person who you feel as though is misleading you or misinforming somebody or is misbehaving in some way. Means somebody has to be the one to do it. That sounds like a gatekeep. That sounds like keeping a gate to me. And if you're a smaller YouTuber and you see a bigger YouTuber going ahead and saying things you want to correct, by all means do so. You have the right to do that. It is your channel. You don't have to cater to somebody else just because you're criticizing their favorite YouTuber. And a bigger YouTuber should be able to handle that pushback, whether it come from somebody on the same level as them, at a higher level of them, or maybe just starting out. They should be able to handle that form of criticism. Again, as long as it's constructive, not trollish. That having been said though, let's get to the elephant in the room. I'm pretty sure everybody knows it by now. The second part of this video has to do with what transpired since I published that initial video. Because right after I did that, right after I published that video, and about maybe a day after, is when everything went down the toilet. So let's explain for those people who are crawling from under a rock and did not see what transpired. 1.07 was announced, and 1.07 broke the game in such a way that it had to go down for maintenance for about 24 to 36 hours. After it came back up, it was 1.08, not 1.07, and it got the changes, which are angering a lot of people. Let's explain what these changes are. Polyphony Digital decided to sneak in the microtransactions for those credits. Now, for those people who don't know, they snuck them in after the reviews came out from those people who had the review copies. And by now, everybody and their mother has their own viewpoint about these kinds of transactions, these microtransactions or MTX being put in their games. It's something that's become commonplace. We wish it wasn't commonplace, but unfortunately it's something that we've come to expect more and more and more. But the general consensus was that, okay, these are just for people who want to blow through the game, get the biggest cars early, don't have to do the progression part of it. Well, there are these legendary cars that cost an arm and a leg in the game. And after you go through the regular progression part of the game, it doesn't seem like they have much of an end game, at least right now. There is a promise for future updates that will add stuff to this. Right now, it's kind of not really bare bones, but kind of gets to that point. And of course, there's an online component of the game. Get to that in a minute. But what has transpired lately is that there was a particular race that people went to in order to grind out credits in order to buy some of these higher end cars. And they were able to get a lot of credits very quickly. Well, 1.07 was supposed to fix this. And how did they fix it? By nerfing the purse for that race. And a lot of others. Well, they raised a few of the races, raised the purse for those races, but lo and behold, they nerfed a lot of things maybe to the ground. And this has got a lot of people upset because what it seems like they're doing is they are putting those races and that purse to such a low level and having you grind out to a point where someone will get frustrated enough that they will see that the microtransactions are the only option. And thus, you get the problem we have right now. Now, before we go any further, let's address why people were upset about the server maintenance. It's because Sony has had a habit of doing that without saying anything to anybody. Now, granted, there was a small Twitter post from Gran Turismo's Twitter account saying that there was going to be a longer server maintenance, but we didn't know how long it was going to be. Maybe it would be a couple hours, stuff like that. 24 to 36 hours became what happened there, and no one knew it, and people were getting so uptight and so frustrated, not only because the majority of the game is online only and there was very few modes that are offline right now on the game, because of the habit that Sony has, and Polyphony Digital probably is taken after Sony here, of not communicating with the audience, communicating with the consumer, communicating with the end user to let them know what the freak is going on and when they can expect to be able to play their game again. This is similar to what the 2010 or 2011 PSN outage was like when they got attacked, DDoS attack, and because of that it went down for an extended length of time and no one could get an answer out of Sony about what the heck was going on. Now granted, they could have said, hey, we don't want to reveal much because we are afraid that whoever hacked it might get an idea of how to hack it again, so we don't want to reveal too much, but we can give you a little bit of a timetable. They didn't even do that much. The worst part about it is there were some people that were defending that kind of practice, and because of that, now they can safely say they could get away with not informing the consumer of anything, and this was the big problem. If you're going to have that much of extended server maintenance for a huge problem like that, you have to communicate with your audience so they know what to expect. If they know, hey, maybe this is going to take a day or more in order to fix because this is such a game-breaking bug, maybe it might have been an easier pill to swallow. It still is a pill they have to swallow, and maybe it would have inconvenienced them to a point where maybe they were gotten upset, but it would have been easier if they had known about it. And maybe they could have planned their day accordingly and maybe been able to deal with it and not been as angry as they were. Especially if you then go and say, okay, maybe when we come back online, you're not going to lose your daily progress or your daily streak or whatever because we had such a big server maintenance. They would have maybe been able to swallow that pill. Maybe you needed to give them a little bit of water to do so, but they'll still be able to swallow this. This is telling them, hey, you have to swallow the whole vitamin, you have to swallow that pill without any bit of water. Imagine how that feels. Now, when they came back online, the feared nerf came with it. And I want to read to you this statement from Kazuroni Yamauchi, the creator of Gran Turismo, and we'll go over it once we read it, saying, quote, I wanted to explain what happened in this update. Immediately before the release of the 1.07 update, we discovered an issue where the game would not start properly, in some cases on product versions of the PS4, PS5 versions. This was a rare issue that was not seen during tests on the development hardware or the QA sessions prior to the release. But in order to prioritize the safety of the save data of the users, we've decided to interrupt the release of the 1.07 update and make a 1.08 correctional update. This is the reason for the delay. My sincere apologies for the late report to everyone. At the very least, that part I can take. That part, maybe he could have communicated that a little bit better. He could have been a little bit forthcoming before this all went down. And if he had said just that, okay, maybe he should have said that a little bit sooner so everybody knew what was going on and when to expect the game to come back up. Maybe there was a DDoS attack again and something like that. However, this continues on. Also in this update, some event rewards have been adjusted. I wanted to also explain the reasons for it and our plans going forward. Here we go. In GT7, I would like to have users enjoy lots of cars and races even without microtransactions. At the same time, the pricing of cars is an important element that conveys their value and rarity. So I do think it's important for it to be linked with the real world prices. I want to make GT7 a game in which you can enjoy a variety of cars lots of different ways, and if possible would like to try to avoid a situation where a player must mechanically keep replaying certain events over and over again. We will in time let you know the update plans for additional content, additional race events, and additional features that will constructively resolve this. It pains me that I can't explain the details regarding this at the moment, but we plan on continuing to revise GT7 so that as many players as possible can enjoy the game. We would really appreciate it if everyone could watch over the growth of Gran Turismo 7 for a somewhat longer term point of view. Okay, so let's go over this for just a second. First things first, users enjoy lots of cars and races even without microtransactions. Okay, people don't like the fact that microtransactions exist in the game, but unfortunately is coming up to a point where we might have to accept it to some extent, but again, it's bitter pill to swallow with that. The problem that people have, and the problem that this particular statement has, is that they see the elephant in the room, but they didn't want to get all the things that the elephant brought with it and not even address that the elephant's there. It said, okay, we're fine with the elephant being there, we're not fine with maybe the mice or maybe the insects that came in there when the elephant decided to barge into the room. And this elephant is a raging elephant with huge tusks ready to impale people with it. That's what they seem to be doing here. Yes, you are trying to implement cars that reflect real world pricing and you're putting that into your credit system. So why then are we only seeing nerfs and very few buffs of purses and prize money and prize cards? Why are the roulettes, the loot boxes and roulettes only giving you the least amount possible? It seems like it's rigged in order to push people into wanting to get the microtransactions to progress, because the progression seems to be extremely grindy to the point where people become very frustrated, and they'll get those microtransactions out of frustration that they're not getting any kind of progression in the game organically. And that seems to be the very big problem. He's addressing the elephant, but he's not telling people that he's going to move the elephant out of the room. This is a weird statement to make. Now, he could in the future say, okay, we're going to implement this or that. And he's saying, oh, we can't reveal it right now. But if he's not getting controlled by Sony to say that he needs to keep things secret, he's the guy that's in charge. Why can't he say that? Why can't he reveal what's going to happen? Maybe 1.09 may fix some things, may buff some things to where it's fixed now. Or maybe make some more elements offline to where you don't have to have an always on connection in order to play it. It seems like he's trying to have his cake and eat it too here. People are going to be upset that the microtransactions even exist in the game. They're not going to care if they're just there for people to have to skip the normal progression, not just because it's there to begin with, but now you're adding on this salt onto the already open wound, and people are seeing right through it. They're not fooled at all in any sort of regard. They're not fooled. They know that something is not right in all of this. Something is not right, and maybe there's something more to this, and maybe Kaz should be trusted a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to like juggle some things that you can't juggle. It's like you're trying to juggle a tennis ball and a chainsaw. And if you want to have a system in which no one should have to play the same race over and over again, then maybe instead of like nerfing everything to the ground, how about just redistributing everything to where certain races that you have to do more endurance type race for provides a better purse at the end of the day, instead of just doing a flat out nerf like you did. Seems as though they're saying one thing and doing another. And that's making a lot of people feel uneasy, and it's leading to the Metacritic score right now. And I'm telling you right now is that despite everything that's been going on, the negative press that's going on about the game, most of the YouTubers that I've seen, Young Ye, Some Ordinary Gamer, and others like Gaming Bolt, they're still saying that the game, despite this mess that they're getting into, is still a terrific game at the end of the day. When you go and you take out all the microtransactions and all the bad press and what's been going on right now, you have a good game there, and you could have a excellent game. You could have a terrific game. And if they can fix all of this and they can get the goodwill back, then perhaps there is some forgiveness as to what was going on here. But the more they leave people in the dark and the more they leave this on the table and don't address it to a way that you can get some room from the elephant that's in the room, and the more they leave the speculation, the more people are going to say that this is not a good faith decision that they're putting forward here, and whose decision was it? And maybe some people could even forgive the online only thing that was going on if it wasn't for these microtransactions right now. If they could balance that out, and it's a hard thing to balance out, but if they can do that, then they could be seen as a very good company. But right now, we're left with what we have. Here we are. And you won't have people like Rich going on in his videos as if he was shaming every single PlayStation owner who even dared to buy the game, regardless of their reasoning for buying it. That was one of the other things that I had a big problem with, is that he didn't seem to want to say, hey, if you like the game, you generally like the game, go ahead, play it. It doesn't matter to me if you do or don't like it. It's about me thinking the game was overhyped, overrated. And yes, he did correct it on his subsequent video about this particular update that they put out there. However, I would have liked to have seen it done in the initial video and not seem as though he was shaming every PlayStation owner and trying to preempt any pushback he would have gotten, as saying only PlayStation fanboys would disagree with what I was saying. I don't think anybody should be doing that, but again, he did correct it, so there's some credit to his side. But the bottom line is that I may have made a mistake by not making it very clear that I was only really pushing back on the things I thought he got factually backwards or factually wrong, while still saying, hey, this was not my experience, but more power to you if you had a more lackluster experience with the game. Again, racing games not for everyone, and particular one is more geared toward the hardcore racing enthusiast. And yes, some people will like Forza Horizon better or Forza Motorsport better. I loved Forza Horizon 4. I'm trying to get to Forza Horizon 5. There's too much stuff on my plate. And I did try Forza Motorsport. It seems as though it was more of a more linear experience than I would have liked. And yeah, Gran Turismo 7 has that sort of linear progression as well, but not as linear as Forza Motorsport 7 was. So it has that going for it. And again, despite everything that's going on right now, if Polyphony, and yes, it is Polyphony, but Polyphony sounds a whole lot funnier to say. So there you go. And if Polyphony Digital can get their act together on this whole thing and clean up this mess, they might not only get people to forgive them for everything they've been doing lately, and we'll see what comes out of that. It remains to be seen. And you may see some people come back and say, you know what, maybe it is a terrific game. Maybe it is a good game. And this is just me saying it, and you can have your own opinion about this if you want. But my take is that if it wasn't for this, GT7 would be a awesome game. It is just a good game right now. It could be an awesome game if they fix all of this stuff going on right now. And fix your stuff, Polyphony Digital, and you may be seeing something you may have not expected to see coming. My name is City Shadow, and that just happened.